I made myself a milky English breakfast and I swear it takes me right back to my time in England and I miss it so much. I miss traveling. The weather is starting to get colder outside. We're seeing much more rain than I have in a very long time, and I have my nice warm tea. I've been lighting candles. Everything about this atmosphere is screaming fall, and I love it so much. And so today I thought I would talk about some of the books that have incredible atmospheres that really suck you in and transport you to new worlds. I am personally a sucker for atmosphere in books. If you have a really good atmosphere in your book, I can look past the plot and the characters not really being up to par if the atmosphere just sucks me in that much. The fun of reading is losing yourself in a story and becoming someone else, stepping into another world, and when atmosphere is used really effectively, I think it just makes the experience that much better. So I'm going to talk about some books today that I think have a really well-developed atmosphere, whether it's for a specific season or a specific land. I think these are books that you can really lose yourself in this fall and winter. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is set in historic Russia, and it follows Vasya, who can see the different creatures of Russian folklore and knows they exist, and how she gets persecuted for that as a witch when Christianity is starting to sweep the land. There are multiple threats to her and her people in this book, both fantastical and political, but what I really loved about these books is the atmosphere. This is written so beautifully and descriptively that you're just automatically transported to this chilly, frigid Russian countryside. Everything is cold and wintry and a little bit scary when you're dealing with some forest demons and folklore demons and also human demons, because humans are awful. But the atmosphere that this builds is so all-encompassing. It makes you feel like you're in the middle of a snowstorm the entire time, and it was so much fun. It was crafted beautifully, and you could never for a minute forget that this was set in a Russian wintry countryside. The folklore and fairy tale bits that are a major part of the story also help to add to the tone and the whimsical nature of these books. While the first book definitely suffered in terms of plot, it didn't really have one until maybe the last third of the book. I was able to look past it just because I really loved the atmosphere and the feeling that it gave me. The second and third books definitely picked up plot-wise, so that also helped, but I think the slower start of the first book definitely allowed for more time for the atmosphere to develop and the setting to really become ingrained in your mind. So I think this was a perfect example of atmosphere done really well, and if you want to be transported to a wintry, dark fairyland, then definitely pick these books up. The next book I'm going to mention is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and this is about a boy whose family was brutally murdered when he was a baby, and he was raised by a graveyard of ghosts. Of course, Gaiman's writing is just perfect for tone and atmosphere. The way that he writes is very immersive and kind of creepy, especially in the case of this book with murder and ghosts. But it's not really a dark book. It is a middle grade, so it's actually pretty lighthearted considering the very dark premise and start to the story. This book is told in parts, so a lot of it just follows Nobody Owens as he grows up and learns different life lessons as he's surrounded by this group of really sweet, lovely ghosts. But because you are still in this graveyard with ghosts, there's always a sense of this really eerie fall atmosphere that was just perfect, especially if you read this on audiobook with the full cast. That was the perfect experience for me. There's music and sound effects and of course all of the different voices for all of the different characters that just make the story really come alive. And I remember listening to this on a very dreary day where it was raining the whole time, and it was literally perfect. It perfectly matched everything in the story, and I was just living for it. I was completely transported to this world. I think it's somewhere in like New England, or I get those vibes anyway, a New England cemetery with all of these ghosts and this little boy as he grows up. It's so sweet. It's perfect to give you these sort of spooky vibes without being too scary, because I am a wimp and I can't handle it, but I still love the atmosphere of fall and Halloween and everything. So if you're looking for something specifically for fall, now would be a great time to pick this up. Trust me and get the full cast audio. It is so immersive and perfect for just taking you out of this world. Next, I'm going to talk about the book that started this whole video idea because it completely transported me somewhere else, and that is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is about Nari, who is a Cairo con artist, and she accidentally summons a Jinn warrior. From there, she is whisked off to the magical Jinn city of Daevabad, and all hell breaks loose because of some very dramatic and long-term scheming and political issues, and it's intense. It's crazy, and it will really bring you into the story, especially with the atmosphere. The initial setting is Cairo, Egypt, and though they don't stay in Cairo for all of that long, there's still ties to Islam throughout this book and throughout the series. And the way that this is woven into the story alongside the descriptions of the scenery and the busy markets was just so immersive. Again, tying in these folklore elements with the Jinn and all of these magical creatures alongside the setting that I am just personally not that familiar with is magical. And while the pacing in this can be a little bit weird as we switch between focusing on characters and focusing on plot, there is still so much plot to these books. There are battles and war and political intrigue, scheming that has been going on for decades, if not centuries, and all of the different hierarchies between the Jinn itself and also how it relates to all of the magical creatures in this world. It's fascinating, and there are twists and turns that I am just dying. I'm currently reading the third book, and I'm dying inside. I'm going to finish it today, actually, because I'm 75% of the way through, and you think things are bad, and then they just keep getting worse, and it's harrowing. Actually harrowing. But that's not what this is about. This is about the atmosphere. The atmosphere is beautiful and lush, and you travel to all of these different lands and you get a taste of all these different lands, and the atmosphere itself changes when you're traveling in all of these different places, and it's beautifully done. It really immerses you in the setting of where you are at that time with these characters, and it really adds to the story even if you are just completely distracted by all of the political machinations. It's so good. If you couldn't tell, I really love this series. But this is the book that sparked this video. I really felt like I was being transported somewhere else, and it made me start to think about all of the other books I've read that have done this to me. So I would highly recommend the series if you are interested in a Middle Eastern magical setting, if you're interested in very flawed and tortured characters, and a very intense political plot. The next book is The Wicked Deep by Shea Ernshaw, and this is about a coastal town in Oregon that is haunted by the ghosts of 3 witches. In the past, they were drowned by the townspeople, so every year they come back to terrorize the town. They take over the bodies of 3 girls and they use them to kill a boy. The chilly Pacific Northwest setting of this book is perfect for this witchy story. And even though I think it's set in summer, I definitely got fall vibes from it. The Pacific Northwest isn't really known for its super hot and bright summers anyway, so the coastal town of this tied with the witchy story gave me eerie, chilly vibes. It's another one where the folklore type elements with the witches tied to a very cold setting just makes for this perfect atmosphere of creepiness. I read this all in one sitting while waiting for a delayed flight at an airport, and it completely drowned out everything around me. I was completely sucked into the story. I was in the seaside town dealing with this mystery and the suspense, and I very much appreciated that because I was not having a good day. And another one where the atmosphere kind of helps me to overlook some other things with the story. The plot was very interesting and very engaging, but the characters were a little bit flat. But I still really love the atmosphere so much that I would highly recommend, especially right now in fall. If you're looking for a witchy read, this is perfect. Sticking with the eerie fall magical vibe, we have Midwinterblood by Marcus Sedgwick. This is a story told in 7 parts about 2 people who find each other throughout time. It has reincarnation, and it is just perfect for the fall. Again, I would highly recommend the audiobook. There's like Celtic music playing in between these different parts, and it really does add to the atmosphere that is already within the story. It's set on this remote island where people are said to live forever, and the more you learn about it, the more questions you have. Going through these stories is fascinating, trying to discover the mystery of who these people are, what has happened in the past, what is still happening. The description of the setting on this really remote, isolated island, as well as all of the very weird things that are happening, is just so creepy and perfect. And while I can't remember if there's a specific location that this island is said to be in, it definitely gave me vibes of like being off of the coast of Ireland and all of the religious history that's tied to that area. It is creepy and chilling and so good. And while the actual concept of the story isn't very unique, the way that it's told is, it really builds up this suspense and foreboding as you go through all of these different stories throughout time and you try and figure out what is happening. Again, the characters were a little bit flat, but the plot is extremely gripping with this mystery, and the atmosphere is a physical presence in the story. I would definitely recommend it for fall. Veering off into something that's not so creepy and dark and fall-like, actually it's more summer-like, and that's The Vine Witch by Luanne G. Smith. This is about a vine witch whose magic is in growing grapes for wine, and she has just recently broken a curse where she was a toad for multiple years. And when she finally comes back home, she realizes there's a new owner living in her house and her vineyard is failing. This is set in historic France, and the pastoral summer vibes from this are so strong. This world is lush and vibrant and full of all of these different kinds of witches. Magic is somewhat known and accepted in this world. The cities tend to not believe in it, but the pastoral countryside where all of these vineyards are dependent on vine witches definitely know that magic is a thing. But the descriptions of the vineyards and the wine, there's so many descriptions of wine, really help to bring to life this kind of sleepy pastoral town in the French countryside where everyone is just living their simple lives, tending to their vines, and it's so peaceful and calm. And I could seriously just get lost in this world. I would love to have a book just talking about all of the people who live there and their daily lives, because the setting and the atmosphere were just so well developed that I want more. I want to live in this world forever. In terms of the other parts of this book, again, I had some issues, unfortunately. I think it is a debut novel, and you can kind of tell the characters have really spotty development, as well as the plot kind of feeling like it bit off more than it could chew. So I wish the story had been a little bit more developed, because that setting and atmosphere were just so beautiful and there was so much potential there. So I think if you're as appreciative of atmosphere as I am, I would still recommend this book. Just go into it knowing that the characters and the plot could use a little bit of work. And the last book I'm going to talk about is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and this is a post-apocalyptic pandemic book. So enter at your own risk in these times, because this has a very eerie atmosphere where most of the world is dead. This story jumps back and forth in time from before and during the pandemic to after, and how people are surviving. It's a very character-focused book, and there's also a bit of a mystery trying to see how all of the different perspectives in this book tie together. But the way this book is written and the atmosphere that it crafted is so dark and unsettling. I was completely transported into this world, and I remember putting this book down and kind of being shocked that everyone wasn't dead. I felt like I was all alone and that the world had died and everything had gone terribly wrong. And when I put it down and actually realized that that's not the case, it was really surprising. And even though I don't like post-apocalyptic books, I was completely immersed in this when I was reading it. Since it is mainly a character-focused book, the characters are well developed, even if the plot is a little bit meandering. And though I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite books by any means, it's just not my genre, I can still really appreciate the atmosphere it built. It was very effective in making you feel like you were all alone and trying to survive in this new world. So if you're looking for something that's slightly dystopic while being very pensive and character focused and also very related to our current times, I would recommend this. Otherwise, if you can't handle anything with pandemics, stay far away from this book. So those are a few of the books that I've read that I thought had a very strong atmosphere. If you like to get lost in the feel of your books, I would definitely recommend any of the books that I mentioned. Please let me know of any books that you know that have a very strong atmospheric element. I would love to find more, and I will see you later. Bye.